Just to say thank you to Renew Judge and Kavita Singh for inviting me out to the Aesthetics Project. I'm really honored to be here. I just wanted to say a couple of things. So the documentary film that I'll show will really explain itself. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, but we're going to have time where I can answer questions after the screening. I'm honored to be here. I'm not an art historian or an archaeologist, so being a part of this symposium, I think I've learned so much from all of you. I'm a journalist and a documentary filmmaker, so I came at this story of Anyak, this ancient Buddhist city, really out of passion and an intense interest in both what's happening to the heritage of Afghanistan. And also, I was so inspired by local Afghan archaeologists that were risking their lives to try to save their own history. I grew up in Ohio, in rural Ohio, in the middle of nowhere, out in farming country. And in Ohio, the stereotypes about Afghanistan, or about the Middle East are very negative. So to my family members, literally, everyone in Afghanistan was either a terrorist or a victim of terrorism, right? These very shallow stereotypes. So I also had this very intense interest to undo the stereotypes and really portray an accurate reflection of what's happening in the country. I work completely independently, and this is a project that I worked on as a crew of one. So it's basically me with a what? It's basically me with a camera, and then I partner with a local fixer translator person, a local expert that basically keeps me alive. And then I did this independently with money from Northwestern University, and later after I'd done some filming, I got a MacArthur grant, and I sort of got more funding. But initially, it was an extremely difficult project to work on, both the security in Logar province, where Anyak is located in Afghanistan, which is a very volatile area, and also the controversial nature of the project, which the film will talk about. But essentially, it's a government-owned Chinese company that has a lot of clout and has a lot of power, and setting up interviews around this subject was very difficult. So I sometimes describe this as a film that shouldn't exist, but because of my own, tenaciousness or stupidity or whatever it is, it managed to exist. So, like I said, the film will sort of describe itself. So I basically just want to start the film, and then we could have a discussion afterward. Mines that accepted a $30 million bribe allegedly. Then there's a new minister of mines that has allegedly accepted a bribe. Now there's even a new minister of mines right now. So you can see the turnaround is just kind of constant for this job. And this new minister of mines is pushing mining to start as soon as possible, which is frustrating because initially he seemed to want to talk about Anyak and want to actually critique this mining deal with the Chinese company, but he's kind of changed his tune recently, unfortunately. A couple last points. So the scene where Kadir is talking about the sort of fight between the French and Kadir, what he's asking for is one computer, like literally one computer, and they were also asking for one camera. So they didn't have one computer, one camera on the site. So part of my awareness, I raised money to buy them computers and buy them cameras. So they now finally have some computers and cameras at the site. And we're preparing to do a new big sort of donation to the Ministry of Culture to support excavation of Anyak. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
What was the time frame of the film? When did it end?
So it ends in 2014.
I just wanted to ask, because yours is one of the first percentage of films of this nature that was made, but it's not been very widely available or shown, as far as I know. And what can we all do to change that so there is more awareness? I'm sure there are people here who are either policymakers or influencers, and I think the more exposure there is to this, and I wasn't aware of this, by the way, I'm sorry I'm being naive, but until we structured the seminar. So how do we do that? And I'm wondering if you have any ideas.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so the film has played on Al Jazeera English, Al Jazeera America. It's played on quite a lot of European television stations. Not that much interest in the United States. That's been a really hard sell. I think that's a great question, and that's usually when I show the film. That's usually what people tell me is they've never heard of this. I was actually on CNN twice, talking about it. I've written about it for the New York Times. So I tried to get the word out there, but it's been slow. Yeah, anything anyone can do to keep the topic relevant would really help.
As we've all seen, this is a very courageous, a very brave film.
Alfred.
As I was saying, as we've all seen, it's a very courageous, it's a very sad film. I don't even see whether there is a little glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, unless this subject is so widely and so quickly disseminated. And maybe that should be the plan, that maybe this group can send it on to the people who take decisions, even in this country, in India, because there's a huge amount of Indian aid which is going out to the Afghan people. And then they can make that as a response to saving this site. And I know whatever $100 billion or whatever that the Afghan economy, as you said in your film, is going to gain from this. Whether they will actually gain or not is questionable. So tell us what to do, and maybe we can all do our best. And starting right from here.
Yes, that would be incredible. Yes.
I stayed at DAFA and was with Philippe visiting. He seemed completely dedicated to saving the site and doing incredible work. So what was going on there? Why was that dissension between the Afghans and the French? I mean, the suggestion in the film was that someone was pocketing the money. What's your understanding?
So I have no idea who where the money is where the money has went to. The World Bank is actually the estimate is a little low in the text on screen. The World Bank suggests I think something of $30 million has been spent at the site, and I don't know where it's.
I've seen in DAFA a large team of maybe 7 or 8 French archaeologists with all the material working on it, cataloguing. It's not like just a bunch of French scumbags hanging around doing.
No, I don't.
The cash.
I hope. I don't mean to suggest that. Yeah.
There was a suggestion in the film that these guys were sort of obfuscating and blocking the Afghans.
So I did witness the two groups sort of butting heads.
I was unaware of that. I have to say that.
But no, I don't think DAFA has pocketed $20 million or whatever. Yeah, I'm not sure. I more imagine it's kind of hits a wall and of corruption and sort of never reaches anyone at the site.
Literally, and the Afghan team literally hasn't even got a camera and a computer. Literally,
right? Yeah.
And this happens everywhere. I mean, there's a very uncomfortable relationship between
local archaeologists than incoming archaeologists. That's true in Uzbekistan, that's true in Afghanistan, and it's true in other places. And the problem is that most of the money is not entrusted to local Afghan archaeologists. It always goes through outsiders. And therefore you set up this system where there is, only thanks to the largesse, right, of incoming archaeologists that things get distributed. And it's very, very frustrating. I mean, Uzbek archaeologists will tell you exactly the same. And there's a great French Institute of Archaeology. You know, I've been privy to be a part of that. And it doesn't trickle down, and that's a reality. And I don't feel that it's addressed enough by those coming from the outside. And there's a sense that there, you know, among local colleagues, that there is an elitism, a neo-colonialism, or a continued colonialism in research. And the French don't address this at all, and they're nice, you know. It's not about that, exactly as you said, these are not scumbags. But there's an elitism, and that's true of the World Bank, right, of UNESCO. You know, UNESCO flies in, you know, they have jet streams. They fly into Bamiyan, and they fly out of Bamiyan. And they come with a list of demands. And it may be right, it may be, you know, it may be...
One impression I got on visiting the site was that there were uncoordinated local, I mean, there was the Afghan team, there was the Uzbek team, and there were 5 or 6 completely independent little teams working away with no obvious coordination.
Yes, and a major problem, and you know, I think I only captured sort of the sort of tip of the iceberg of fighting between the groups and not sharing information and a kind of confusion between all the groups. Unfortunately, and I think that wasn't necessarily to, or the blame doesn't sort of necessarily fall on those groups. I mean, I think, you know, in a lot of ways, I felt that, you know, the World Bank was a little bit pulling the strings of all of this, and there was massive turnaround at the site where the, you know, head of the site would, you know, leave after a year, would be fired after a year, and we'd be replaced. So then it was kind of like everything was starting over. So.
The head of the site, as in the head of the archaeological head or the mining? Or?
No, so there was sort of Hans Culver was actually the I don't know if you met Hans, was kind of the brain of the site, you know, kind of just as I got there, and he had been, you know, fired. So there was kind of some semblance of a brain that organized the groups, but they were sort of constantly being, I thought, you know, undermined or outright fired and then replaced, and the process would kind of repeat. So
I also understood that the mining has been sort of almost indefinitely postponed because the Chinese are worried about security. They think things are very there is no immediate threat of mining in the foreseeable future because of security.
Yeah, I mean, so that's you know, the Chinese government companies says that. I mean, I think there's other reasons. I think the price of copper and the Chinese economy are I think you know, if copper prices go up, I think the company probably would push forward. But yes, there has been a total kind of stall in operations, and this Chinese mining company promised things that never happened. They promised a railway system and power plant and infrastructure and things that never materialized.
2 years ago, there was this whole big Chinese, China were moving in, and there was plans to build a rail link between
right.
Kashgar and Mazar.
Yes.
And all that seems to be put on ice. And further plans also to link with Iranian ports.
All of it, yeah. And there was a point where this new minister of mines was critical of that and was sort of saying, you know, this deal is bad for the country, and he's since kind of flip-flopped on that and has been aggressively pushing for them to get started again. What does that mean exactly, though, is up in the air. I think my fear, though, is even if mining wouldn't immediately start, that the Chinese company would force the archaeologists off for some reason.
Obviously, the Chinese company is a threat. security, whatever they get enough security out there to start operation when they have to, because it's a remote location. Ideas have to be thought of how to stop this mega Chinese company. Is this the same company that is mining in Pakistan at Sunday?
I don't believe so, but it's the same company that's mining within China.
There's a big copper mine down Balochistan, just a little bit further down, toward the Iranian border, called Sandak, and there's a Chinese company. And
The Chinese government-owned company, yeah.
same copper. What do you think of how to stop? Bring down the price of copper is the only thing.
Well, you know, and William Dalrymple has written about Masonic, did maybe this, I would say maybe the definitive, you know, written story I thought was quite brilliant, and his talk about Bamiyan, that is a UNESCO, you know, World Heritage Site, where there is actually a plan to, you know, not to sound naive, but to bring tourists in. You know, I think that there is a dream of that, and you know, in my heart, that's my hope, you know, for Masonic, is that actually this rescue archaeology would stop. So the rescue archaeology, as you see, is a very destructive process, and that's still, I mean, one big question, if mining is not going to happen, why is rescue archaeology still happening? You know, why doesn't that destructive process stop, and you know, the site to sort of protect it? You know, and I think
Protected by whom?
yeah. So right, yeah. So right, and that's a great point, because the site is, as you see, the site is being protected now only because the Chinese company is there. There's these great ironies in this film. So, in a sense, driving out the Chinese company would be, you know, unless there was a plan to replace the security, would be, you know, potentially removing this, you know, Kabul police force of 1,500 people. And that's why the film doesn't end with kind of bullet points of here's what I think you should, you know, here's what I think would solve the problem, because it is so precarious and difficult.
But to go to Chinese proverb, slightly incorrectly, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So the first few steps have been taken. So maybe we can resolve on behalf of Renu and the Aesthetics Project and everybody else involved, that we petition the government of India through the president with your film, and with a strong petition that since a lot of government aid is being given from the Indian government to the Afghan government, one of the things it should sort out is the fate of this site, so that it is no longer just rescue archaeology, but proper archaeology that is being done, which means that maybe the mining will be considered to be stopped, whether for economic reasons from the Chinese side or whatever. Well, we can wish them not so well, the economy, so that at least they, so that the price of copper falls, the economy falls, and they want to get out of Thank you.
But Brent, you want to I'd like to actually come back to the film. First, I think on behalf of everyone in this room, I'd like to profoundly thank you. It's very hard to actually find the words for the kind of response that a film like this deserves. I think what you're getting from a lot of the people in the room right now is the sense of umbrage and the sense of crisis that everybody is feeling on being exposed to the film and the issues that are raised by the site that your film brings us. And so we are all actually in this moment of feeling that we have to do something about it, whether or not that is too utopian for it to ever come to pass. But there are so many other things about this that I want to absolutely bow to you for having done. First, your own courage and tenacity. I can't even imagine what it was that took you there and what it was that sustained you and how long you worked on this and under what conditions. Because you are being a very discreet, absent presence in the film as you focus on the archaeologists that you're working with. Of course, our minds are boggled when people like Kadir Tiburi and other such people that you have captured. But as Sanjot was also pointing out a minute ago, what is incredibly profoundly moving about this film is that for me at least, it's the first time that I have seen something that we actually read about in the margins of our histories when we get our histories of archaeology from the colonial perspective, because of course the archive is produced by the people who have the power, right? And so we always know that when there was a British archaeologist working in the 19th century in India, there were droves and droves of Indians working with them. What they thought, what their intelligence was, what their contribution was, is always erased, right? This is the first time that we are actually seeing an archaeologist who's not from a powerful country actually, turning into such a character, such a fine character, a hero. And you have given us this. And regardless of what happens to Ms. Anyak, I think Kadir Tiburi has turned into a monument in our minds. It's a paradigm shift to think about people and science and archaeology and the tremendous investment that people have in these things, which we don't acknowledge because these are not the guys who are writing the widely disseminated histories and doing the gorgeous illustrated books. So I thank you profoundly for this. But I want to know a little bit about what took you here and what are the circumstances under which you made the film, and how, when you say you're a crew of one, how do you do this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think some of it may be me being naive and me being stupid. I think a little bit. Especially now I have kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and to think about basically what I was doing was going out in a rented Kabul taxi, so just a beat up Toyota, driving down the desert through Taliban country, essentially, which sounds incredibly stupid, I guess. But why I made the film? I mean, I think I covered the presidential elections in Afghanistan in 2005, and I really fell in love with the country and fell in love with the culture and with the people. I mean, it really affected me in a huge way. And I think that's part of it, just being so inspired by Kadir and it's a hell of a thing to say. So basically what Kadir would get, he would get these text messages on his phone from the Taliban saying, we're going to kill you. And one, this making a film is kind of a double-edged sword for, in many ways, but him being a hero also puts his face out there in a bigger way. And when this film played on Al Jazeera, he was threatened by the Taliban who saw the film on Al Jazeera. And that was...
Why?
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 So that's a great question, and some of this is just my speculation. Because of the publicity, I think, because he does seem like this important figure. I think anyone, the Taliban would say is because he was supporting Buddhism, that's what they told him, but to me I think it's just because his voice matters and he's getting an international audience. So unfortunately that was one of the sort of ramifications of making the film. Yeah, so they would, and no money was ever given to them, but yeah, they would say, and this would actually happen. So I never was able to stay at the site, sleep at the site, because it was once the sun went down, it was just way too dangerous. So the Taliban would hide landmines on the sort of only road in and out, that would kill people, would be hit by vehicles. So yeah, why did I make the film? I think it's just this inspiration of this courage, this father. Now Kadir has another son, so he's got 4 children now. Just being so inspired by someone that believes in history and culture. And I think I love that, going back to this colonial idea. If Afghanistan loses sites like Meysanak, loses its history, what is left? What is it once those things are gone? There's power in history. There's power in identity and a country having a sense of self and importance in shaping the world. And once it's gone, it's gone forever.
One other small question I had, which is when you say rescue archaeology and actually taking pieces out, as much as I can, where do they go?
So just to back up, yeah. So rescue archaeology is, at least to me, from sort of an outsider perspective, is very much like looting. You know, it's we know where something is, we'll sort of break it off, and the troubling thing is, you know, some of it's stored at the site where there is little or no accountability, or you know, I think. You know, sort of written account of what exactly is where, and this disconnect between the groups of archaeologists only makes that more complicated. Is that some groups have artifacts that the others don't know about, and I just think it would be, you know, incredibly easy to, you know, take something home with you in your car, and, you know.
Can I just make a quick aside here about this?
Sure.
I was talking to somebody from one of the auction houses, and today, as you're aware, one of the sponsors is Christie's, an auction house. And I want William Robinson to kind of delineate what current rules of, you know, we're talking about what happens to these objects when they're stolen or whatever, spirited away. I think there's a lot more structure and morality, for lack of another word, that the auction houses certainly have these days, which was not going on before, and they're very supportive of these sites, but I want to hear it from a practitioner and what he has to say about it. Sorry to put you on the spot.
You didn't expect that.
Thank you. Wonderful welcome. In 2000, or rather in the late 1990s, we at Christie's came to the conclusion that we had to draw a line. We had to decide, and we had to work out what we were prepared to sell, what we were not prepared to sell. And so right at the beginning, 1st of January 2000, we put a line there where anything that we couldn't prove was in free circulation on that date or earlier, we wouldn't sell. That was the line we put in at that time. Obviously, the first few years it was quite easy. It is getting considerably more difficult in the position of auction house. The other thing is, at first, we were reliant on affidavits from people who can sign, and after one in particular unfortunate event, we had to take that further, and we couldn't accept affidavits, and we require third-party verification, photographic, sort of work by a restorer, bill of sale. So that is where we are now. We don't always put all the information into the catalogue itself. We hold it ourselves. We put an indication of what we are holding. But there are obviously names that are sensitive, that they don't want in the public domain. We don't want in the public domain. But we will give an indication now of the provenance of everything. And this applies to anything archaeological and anything architectural. So anything that is associated with a specific site.
And you also would alert scholars or people working in archaeology if you really recognize something. Now, you've seen a film, you recognize something as being,
That's a more difficult one.
Start?
If there is something that we know has been stolen, that specific object, then yes, we will. Everything goes via the art loss register before our sales come out. So one of the messages we would say is please if something goes missing, put it on the art loss register. Because one of the problems is that people do not do that, and therefore there's no record of the theft. And I've had things where we have in our warehouse something we know, or it's with a client, we know that that piece has been looted, stolen, whatever. But if you go to the place where it came from, even if you've got photographs of it in situ, you will be told, oh, it's just gone to be restored, or there will be a cover-up. So we can't actually return it.
Thank you.
So, sort of what looked like warm weather and cold weather. So how long were you at the filming?
So since 2011, I would sort of make 2 to 3 week trips sort of sporadically. I teach at Northwestern University, so I had to sort of go back and do it sporadically. The one comment, and I didn't mean to suggest that looted artifacts were sold at Christie's or were anyway. I didn't mean to. I apologize if I sounded like that. But one fear though that I have, I talk about the double-edged sword of making a film, is in a lot of ways, again, potentially putting Kadir's face out there and putting him at risk. I've also kind of made this very beautiful commercial for artifacts from Anyak. So it's very difficult, I think. The fine line that you sort of have to operate on, raising awareness, but also wanting to protect something. It's very difficult.
Jason and then Kurt.
Thank you very much for your efforts to bring attention to this important issue, which has been on the horizons for scholars working in the field of South Asian archaeology. It's been for almost half a decade now, but it seems like a lot is being done. It is the world's, according to your film, the world's kind of most extensive dig, and with hundreds of archaeologists.
Well, they've since left, but at one point, there was this very large crew there.
Right. But I'm just wondering, in terms of the practicality of a kind of massive excavation project like that, is there a possibility of doing a full kind of surface excavation? I mean, those are hardly ever done anywhere nowadays. And is that a realistic hope? Or is it better to be, and I'm sure they have been very strategic at this point in terms of isolating the most important sites.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just wondering where I'm not an archaeologist myself, but I'm just wondering what.
And I'm not. I'm not either. I mean, that's perhaps a question for someone else. I mean, I was merely sort of stating, this destructive rescue archaeology should stop if there isn't this really immediate threat to the site, and so, at least some kind of preservation, protecting what's there. But that's a great point. I'm not sure.
My question: we've seen these little publications that have been surfacing. I know and clearly with multiple players, the World Bank, lots of people probably are claiming the data. Mm-hmm. Do you have any sense of a publication coming out? Because of course that would protect the objects, the site. I mean, it would be a good thing.
Yes, I mean, it would be a wonderful thing. Where it would come from exactly?
Well, that's what I was wondering, if you had any sense of any of those different players sort of emerging as.
I mean, that's a great point. Like I said, we are, or I'm planning to, the money's actually in Kabul now. A donation to the Ministry of Culture. I mean, that might be a great goal for them to work toward is some kind of publication,
Yeah, I mean, even if it was simply a gallery.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about this. I think what does exist is, you know, a sort of catalog of what exists in the Kabul Museum. So there is sort of a write-up, and that's the basis of some of the information in the film.
DAFA has published 3 or 4.
These preliminary reports, which are great, yeah.
This is the pictures of frescoes.
Yeah.
Again, Philippe has been transferred now. Philippe's now working in Paris.
So, you know, one of the reasons why I was very keen to have this film, however extreme the situation in Afghanistan might appear, it might seem like it's an extraordinarily bad set of circumstances over there, because as Brent said, even if the copper mine doesn't come up, if it's infinitely deferred or cancelled, that is no sort of assurance about the future of the site because of the political instability of the place, and who knows what will happen to it even if the site is preserved. But you know, considering that we were going to be looking at Bamyan earlier in the day, and we would have this very strong reminder of the kind of destructive effects that have been wrought upon some Buddhist sites in Afghanistan because of certain religious motivations, I also thought it was very important to have your film, Brent, because it also shows us how destructive a force is that thing that we believe to be good, which is development, right? There's nobody in this room who would want to begrudge a country that has been convulsed for 20 years with civil war. We would not want to begrudge them wealth, you know, the capacity to develop their resources. And yet at the same time, you see how infinitely destructive it is. You have the Chinese manager of the mine saying, we didn't anticipate this problem of archaeology, but it is a problem that will be solved soon. And I'd just like to actually turn the mirror around to all of us, because, you know, all of us are also in our own lives and the conveniences that we enjoy, we are also constantly living off the dodging of the problem of archaeology. And I think my colleague Navan has very frequently pointed out that when we hop into the metro and go from South Delhi to Chandni Chowk to eat kebabs or chaat or whatever it is that we go there for, we don't think about how in a city like Delhi there has been this massive amount of digging that has gone on for years, and there hasn't been a whisper of a find on the ground underneath our feet. Is it possible that a city that has been inhabited for so long would not have turned up anything? So this is a problem, and it is a problem that has been crushed underfoot because it would have been too inconvenient. And so let us not feel actually too distant from what we were seeing in Brent's film. And let us all know that actually in our lives, we all benefit from very similar kinds of processes of destruction. No? It's, I think, quite a reminder. Now, to be honest, we did have a two-part plan for Bamyan for today. There was William Dalrymple's very eloquent evocation of Bamyan, and then there was an Afghan scholar, a young man, who Zara's attached to the Buddhas of Bamyan and what the specific meanings of the Buddhas were for them, and how, therefore, for that minority community, the assault on the Bamyan Buddhas was also an assault on them, right? He has been unable to come. He has sent a video recording of his talk, but we do all also feel that it is very hard to go anywhere after we have been with you, Brent. So I'm just wondering if we should now adjourn for tea, and should we say goodbye to this event and just, let it go at this point?
See that? Because we have that recording of Reza's.
I would like to see it.
You would like to see it? All right, then we can have tea and we can come back in 15 minutes. And if people have other things to do,
No, please all stay.
Yeah, but in that case, please stay, because you will hear something you will not have heard before. Thank you very much.